Hello my wonderful, beautiful friends, guys. Welcome back to our /EntitledPeople, where you know the deal. People believe they can do what they want, when they want, because they're special. And in today's episode, we've got customers destroying stores, gold diggers getting their lives ruined, psycho Walmart Karens, and one OP tells a super embarrassing story that happened at work. Guys, I hope you enjoy the stories today. Don't shake your heads too hard, and as always, you can send or link your post to this email right here. Let's dive in. I work at a liquor store that just updated our carding policy from anyone that looks under 40 to every customer, every time. Last night, a man comes in and he was deeply offended that I dare ask for his ID. So after going back and forth for a few minutes and me trying to gently explain that it's a new policy, the guy gets angry. I told him I can't sell to him without seeing it. The guy finally gets it out, flashes it at me, and then moves to pull it away, without me having a chance to see anything on it. I was sick of his BS at this point, and I told him I need to physically have his ID in hand. Now, I didn't actually need to, but was well within legal rights to request it, as it's one way to check for fake IDs. His response was to call me an effing useless bitch, and then throw the card past me with enough force to knock over the small display on a shelf behind me. I picked up his ID, and took my time picking up the things that fell and straightening the ones that were pushed out of position, and fully intended on refusing the sale on grounds of my zero a-hole policy. And that's when I noticed that this ID expired in 2021. I then smiled real big and used my best customer service voice to say, "I'm so sorry, sir, but unfortunately, your ID's expired and I cannot legally complete the sale. You'll need to go get it updated before I or anyone else can legally sell to you." Now, I was expecting anger and screaming and threats, but no, the guy actually laughs in my face. At this point, he said he didn't have to have an ID because he's a sovereign citizen and he can't be held to laws of the United States, and that I'm violating his rights if I didn't sell to him. In fact, it would be illegal to not sell to him, in his words. The guy then goes on to say that I will sell to him, or he'll have no choice but to get the police involved, and I will go to jail, and that he would likely have to sue me for violating his constitutional rights and for emotional damage. Now, hearing him spew that nonsense, I was baffled by the number of contradictions he had so confidently uttered. My only comeback in the moment was that I'm held to the laws of our country and state, and they say that I can't sell to anyone without a valid ID. I also told him that he was welcome to get the police involved if he really wanted to, but he would have to wait for them outside, and I'm sure they would love to hear all about how he's been driving with an expired license for 3 years. And that's when the anger came. The guy starts smashing things, and he threw the case of beer and half a gallon of vodka he'd been trying to buy onto the floor, obviously shattering everything. On top of that, he then kicked a display while he was screaming nonsense and several slurs at me. The guy even tried to get the only other customer in the store to side with him, but that didn't happen. The other customer is an absolute gem of a person, because he had moved to place himself between me and the psycho guy as soon as he got violent, and he stayed between us until police arrived. I got to press the panic button for the first time, and charges were pressed, and he was trespassed from the store. He wasn't taken into custody though, but his truck was impounded, and his daughter had to come pick him up. I've been at this job for nearly 2 years, and that was by far the most dramatic interaction I've ever had. And probably one of the more stupid interactions as well, right? Like OP said, it just hurts knowing that everything that guy was saying was just straight up nonsense. Like, I love how as a sovereign citizen, he's threatening cops, talking about constitutional rights, and the fact that he'll sue OP. Okay there, sir, so you can use the legal system when it's convenient for you. Got it. That said though, props to OP for handling that situation so well. I hope her employer recognized that, because some people are absolutely bonkers. Okay, so I'm gonna start off with a bit of information. When I was fairly young, my parents separated and then divorced. My dad eventually moved to a small town up the coast, and this also happened in the early 90s, 1992 to be exact. I stayed with my mom and soon-to-be stepdad. From the ages of 4 to 10, I lived with my mom and stepdad, spending the holidays with my dad up the coast. A little after I turned 10, my mom asked me what I wanted to do, to live with my dad or come with them when they moved to a small mountain town. I opted to move in with my dad. For the first year or so with my dad, it was fine. We were poverty-stricken, but we managed. I finished grade 5, and over the summer, he decided that he wanted to move and get a roommate. Except this roommate was a woman that I didn't like. I knew there was something wrong with her that I couldn't figure out till I was older. I'm just gonna call her Karen for the story's sake. Karen immediately tried to replace my mother. This woman would discipline me, teach me chores, etc. All the things I would need to learn regardless. What bothered me though was that my dad had the hots for her and he basically let her walk all over him. He ends up paying the majority of the bills as she took over the space and her word was the law. And yes, my father was an entitled person enabler. At some point, she got pregnant by her then boyfriend. He was a musician as far as I can remember, and he was very well off, like super rich. The guy owned a few fancy cars and a few investment properties, but was she happy with that? Nope. Now, I only say that because often she would drive around with me in her car to see her friends. One of the places she would stop was some ramshackle trailer in the boonies. I was always left in the car when we went there, and I would be in the car often for over an hour. A tall blonde guy would often walk her back to the car. At the time, I was 11 years old, and I had a pretty good idea of what she was doing. But I had no plans on saying anything, because I didn't think it was any of my business. Well, at least until Karen pulled some crap on me. I can't remember what she screamed at me for, but I got lectured. And Karen told me I must always tell the truth, because lying is bad, etc., etc. So tell the truth I did. Shortly after Karen's tirade, she left to visit the guy in the trailer. Not too long after that, the home phone rings, and I picked up the phone. It was Karen's musician boyfriend trying to contact her. Apparently they made plans to meet up in a couple of hours, and he was looking to speak to Karen. The conversation basically goes like this. The baby daddy calls and says, "Hey kiddo, is Karen there?" It's at this point I have a moment of clarity. I say to him, "Hey, no, she's not home. She's at some trailer guy's place." As soon as I say that, there's a momentary silence. And he says, "Did you just say trailer guy?" I say, "Yeah, she left about 45 minutes ago." I can hear him clearly distressed as he says, "Thanks, kiddo," and then hangs up the phone. Nothing happened for the rest of the night, at least that I know of. But the next day was a complete crap storm. Karen came home and she went straight for me. She was screaming, crying, throwing things, and telling me that I ruined her life. My dad rushes in and he asked what the heck was going on. That's when Karen says, "She told Jeff about the trailer guy. How dare you? He broke up with me and he wants nothing to do with me, and it's all her fault." The whole time, she's ranting and crying, but she ends up revealing the truth. While she was visiting Trailer Guy, baby daddy shows up and bangs on the door. Apparently, he knew exactly who I was talking about. Now, whether they were the same group of friends or something else, I still have no idea. Baby daddy yelled and banged on the trailer until she came out. He then confronts her about the cheating, whether her pregnancy was even real, if the baby was his, etc. Trailer guy had no idea about her pregnancy and he freaks out as well. Both of them completely shunned her and they just left her standing there with her clothes and her car. She apparently spent the rest of the night driving around until she ends up at baby daddy's house and she went crazy on his door. She demanded that he let her in, take her back, etc. And he ends up calling the cops on her and they escort her off his property with a warning. Eventually, she makes her way home, and that's when she decides to take her anger out on me. She's still screaming, and she asked why I would do something like that would destroy her life. I just remember her screaming at me over and over again, saying, "This isn't what I meant about always telling the truth." That's when my dad responds, "She's right, you punished her for not telling the truth. She only did what you asked her to. But yeah, Karen was so angry that she storms out. I later found out that baby daddy only agreed to child support and some visitation, but not in her company. I also never heard about the trailer guy again. My dad ends up moving to another small place, and I never heard about Karen again either. But as far as I know, she never recovered. You know what? That's exactly what she gets, guys, right? A ruined life, and I don't feel bad at all. Like, cheating on her boyfriend while pregnant with his kid is next level low. And what's also wild is the fact that she took along OP, a freaking kid with her, to meet up with a guy she's having an affair with. Like, it's almost like she deserves what happened for being that level of dumb, right? So this happened about February or March or something. I was shopping for fabric to sew together a Renaissance costume dress for a thing I was doing. Not gonna bore you guys with those details. Now, I was in the country of blue polos and khakis, where the motto on their flag read, "Save money, live better." I clearly did not belong, myself being in a black hoodie and skinny jeans. I was browsing the many extravagantly colored fabrics with a pattern sitting on top of my purse in the basket. As I'm pulling the things of fabric off the top shelf and putting them into the basket, I feel a bony, hard hand smack the back of my head. Now this obviously startles me, and I drop the roll of fabric I'm holding, which was already hard enough to do since I was in a cast-type wrap from my wrist surgery. At this point, I whip around, and I somewhat loudly said, "What the F?" in the playful manner I do with my sister, because for some reason, I thought she saw me in the store, and she wanted to greet me in normal sister fashion. But no, this woman was definitely not my sister. Standing behind me was a short, fat, late 60s, early 70s woman, and she was sporting the same shade of red from my hoodie on her face. Obviously, my face drops from playful to pissed off and worried because I had just sworn at an old lady, and I was raised better than that. At this point, I begin going through my routine of, "Oh, I'm so sorry, ma'am, I didn't realize I was in your way, blah blah blah," as I was picking up the roll of fabric I dropped. Well, not even halfway through my rehearsed apologies, this old frog starts to practically hiss at me saying, "I thought you were a worker. I've been waiting here at the cut counter, waiting for somebody to help me." Now, cue my nervousness and my social anxiety getting busy in my brain. I start to giggle out of nervousness, fear, and confusion as the woman continues to scream, saying, "And how dare you curse at me? What kind of entitled brat treats an old woman like this?" At this point, my nervous giggling was pretty hard to hide. As I stutter out, "Ma'am, I'm not sure what it is you want me to do for you, but I can't help you." This made her even angrier as she storms off. I went back to loading fabric in my cart, and after 20 minutes of going through the motions of taking out and putting back fabrics, I feel that old toad shoving past me as I'm bent over looking at some sparkly fabric. The woman shoved me so hard that I fell onto my wrist that I had just had surgery on not too long before. She then went back to screaming at me with the manager standing beside her. Now this dude was the icing on the effing cake. The guy had his nose buried in a phone, and he was only paying about 3% attention to what was going on. The entire time I got myself up and dusted off, that old woman was screaming away. She was saying something like, "This little brat is rude to me." I just watched the manager with a what the F look on my face, still giggling nervously. Now this idiot, without even looking up from his phone, just says, "So go help her, I don't care, I can't stand dealing with new hires." And at that, I was pissed. I blurred out with a loud, "Excuse me?" only for him to glance up from his phone, look me over, and give me the dirtiest look I've ever gotten from a manager. He says to me, "So where's your vest and name tag? Who do you think you are that you can try to get out of actually working your shift by hiding your vest and name tag?" At that, I let out a laugh, only to be met by the old woman's bony hand across my cheek, and another screech of, "You stop laughing, this isn't effing funny. What is wrong with you?" Now hearing that set me off. I scream at the manager saying, "Are you dumb? I'm on medical leave from my job because of this." showing them my wrapped up wrist. And I don't know who you people think you are, but you need to get it through your heads that I'm not helping anybody because I'm not an employee here. People were staring, and the old woman along with the manager were just standing there, slack-jawed, as I finally got a word in. I then say to the woman, "How dare you, you old bat? Are you just an ignorant, entitled C-word, or are you just that damn stupid?" The woman looked like she was about to cry, but she was so pissed off that she was still red. The manager takes a step back, and he hung his head. And I'm assuming that he was choosing his next words after his massive mess up. I calmly push my cart to the cut counter, and I set my rolls of fabric on the work table before pressing the bell button. The manager rushes to the counter and cuts my needed fabric, and then wraps them up after marking the price down by half. The whole time, his face was looking ghostly pale. I giggled as I mumbled out, "Assault, lawsuit, no more job." When the guy was done, I just smiled at the old frog, who's still in shock. I waved goodbye and went on about my business. I checked out, went home, made my dress, and filed a very, very detailed complaint to a corporate headquarters agent. I don't think it'll happen again, and especially not with that manager. Yeah, I hope that guy was fired, and I honestly wish OP stayed at Walmart and caused a bigger scene because that manager deserves to be fired on the spot. Like, he clearly doesn't care about his job, doesn't pay attention to who works for him, and lets other customers smack people. He needs to get canned. That said, good on OP for standing up against that nasty Karen though. Okay, so I work in a corporate environment in the marketing department. A portion of what I do is handling the corporate website. One of our mid-level professionals, who I'll call Karen, has recently published an excellent research paper that's topical, relevant, and insightful. It's a big deal for her professionally and the company as a whole, and as such, it's gone to her head a little bit. But this story is not about her entitlement. Every year, we get professional headshots done to feature in corporate documents. It's one guy who does every office, and he's usually pretty good. But with 800 staff and unrealistic deadlines, he'll do color correction, but no retouching. That said, Karen's paper is being published, and I'm called to do all the marketing around it. This includes getting professional hard copies of the document, a social media strategy, and some conference speaking work. And the thing is, her headshot is a little off. As a thumbnail, it's fine, but when it's zoomed in, you can see a definite mustache. And not a little, maybe she ate a chocolate donut for lunch mustache, but a lip full of whiskers that you'd expect to see on a 90-year-old woman who enjoys hitting kids with her walking stick. So I can't exactly call up and ask if I should do something about this, as it's not really a conversation I want to have, and I'm also not known as the most tactful person. I'm very familiar with Photoshop and I use it all the time, so I go about just blending and masking her whiskers a bit. I'm zoomed right in on her mouth to clean up the zone. And here's the thing. I work in an open office, but not many people are in my immediate area. Still, it's not something I want to embarrass her about, so anytime somebody walks by, I Alt-Tab to a different screen, or move the picture to a different area. Lo and behold, Karen decides to drop by with her feedback on the printed draft that she's marked up. As she comes by, I can hear her footsteps, and I hit the scroll wheel on the mouse. She comes in and freezes, and she asked what I'm doing. I say I'm just tweaking a picture. And when I look back at my own screen, it's zoomed right in on Karen's cleavage. Of course, she gets louder, and she screams at me saying, "What the F am I doing fixing her chest area?" She then asked if I'm making her breasts bigger or doing something shady, and for some reason, I decide to avoid telling her the truth, and I just say I'm evening out the skin tone. She just dumps the hard copy draft and walks away. About an hour later, I get an email from HR saying I need to stop working on this project and come in for an interview. I ask if I can speak privately first and explain the situation. Long story short, I still get in a lot of trouble for fixing an image without her consent. And I get told that Karen's more than her appearance. I also get told that it's sexist to try to make her prettier. I acknowledge that, but also mention that I tidy up all images that are going to be blown up, men and women alike. But to be honest, I'm trying to get out of the awkwardness of the situation. So we have the meeting, and I had to explain the whole thing to Karen directly, and she's adamant that she doesn't have a mustache. And to be fair, while sitting there in certain light, she doesn't. She then goes on to suggest that I altered the picture to add the lip hair, as an excuse for staring at her chest. It's also worth noting here that she wasn't dressed provocatively or anything, just normal corporate wear. Well, to avoid more trouble, I then had to get the photographer to resend the originals to the HR rep, and they indeed show Karen's lip hair. She's still livid though, and she suggested that I jump off this project. I'm actually a bit concerned as to where this leaves me going forward, as she does have a bit of influence in the office. I told my boss the whole story, and he's assured me I'll be fine, in between being sympathetic and stifling his laughter at my misfortune. Honestly, I don't know how OP survived that situation. Like, I think I would have just crawled into a small dark hole, never to be seen again after that, guys. Like, there is nothing you can say in that moment to make it seem better. Oh, Karen, I'm not staring at your chest. It's not zoomed into your chest. I'm trying to fix your mustache because you have lip hair. It's gross. That said though, guys, should have just left it, right? Like, I know OP wanted to do a good deed, if that's what you want to call it, but maybe next time have the awkward conversation instead of ending up in an awkward situation. Or just leave it, let them blow up that picture. This story takes place at the motel my parents own and manage. The place is pretty old, and a lot of things have to be manually done or switched on or off. So this takes place on a Friday, and it's early evening. I was heading down to the opposite side of the hotel to turn on the exterior lights, the electronic sign, the parking lot lights, etc. This motel doesn't have all doors with electronic locks, so the door I had to get through was an actual lock and key. So I'm walking down past all the rooms when a door behind me opens. I just keep walking, barely throwing a glance over my shoulder. I eventually make it towards the end, and I'm just about to pull out the key when I hear rapid footsteps. I turn around, stopping another wild Karen in her tracks. Alright, she didn't really look like a Karen, but I had been working the lobby when she checked in, and yeah, no doubt about it. For a second, she actually hesitates to talk, almost fooling me into thinking, oh, maybe I was wrong about her. But no, Karen begins to berate me for not being behind the desk and getting her food. And I'm thinking to myself, what the heck? This is a motel. Where does she think she is? So I tell her in a mocking way, since I honestly gave 0 Fs about what she thought, oh sure, let me just snap my fingers and conjure food from the non-existent kitchen, Your Highness. And she did not like that. I was so sure that she would start yelling at me for mocking her. But no, the woman responds, "You're a witch?" Once more, I ask myself, what the heck? I then start laughing, mostly from my own thoughts and what she said. That's when Karen says to me, "Why are you laughing? I'm the manager's wife and I can fire you." Still laughing, I'm bent over, trying to breathe properly, with tears streaming down my face at this point from laughing so hard. That makes me start snorting from breathing in and out at the same time. Now I know that's total BS, because my parents are the collective manager here and the owners. The woman has no idea. I eventually take a deep breath, and I look Karen straight in the eyes, and I say, "You'd fire your own daughter, Mom?" Karen looks so dumbfounded by what I'd said. She huffs angrily and walks away. I turn on the lights and I think that's the end of it. But no, the morning shift typically has to clean up breakfast. And since I was helping my dad, I was the one who was cleaning up breakfast. It's from 6 to 9 and it was about 15 minutes from 10 o'clock. I was just wiping down the counter and nothing was left from breakfast on the counter, except for coffee for guests. I go into the back and start washing dishes, which means that my dad has to keep his ear out for the door chime to go off, signaling that someone's come in. I'm in the middle of washing dishes when I hear yelling coming from the front. I'm greatly concerned for my dad, and I rush towards the office, grabbing my phone from the desk just in case I had to call 911. Lo and behold, Karen had arrived. The woman's yelling at my dad how there's no breakfast set out, how he's such a crappy employee, and how she knew the manager. My dad just kept trying to explain breakfast hours were over, and they were under no obligation to keep it open for her, even pointing to the sign right behind his head that stated the hours too. But Karen wasn't having it. She saw me as soon as I walk in and she loses it. She screams, "And your employee cursed me last night when I was simply asking for directions." And no, Karen did not say cursed at me. I have to do the whole nails in palm trick to not start laughing at the memory because I would no doubt get in trouble for that. That's when my dad turns to me and he gives me this questioning look. I just shake my head and shrug. Meanwhile, Karen says, "I want her fired right now." Well, as we say in the industry, the customer is unfortunately always right. My dad then turns to me, his face away from Karen, and he gives me a grin before saying, "You heard the lady, you're fired." I give him a returning grin saying, "Okay, Dad, I'll go finish the dishes." Karen starts sputtering nonsense, but my dad turns to her and says, "Is there anything else I can help you with?" Karen then demands to see the manager, and that's when Dad says, "I'm the manager here, and I'm asking you to leave the property. You're causing quite a disturbance right now." She then screams, "Well then, I'm not paying." We have Karen's credit card on file, so we're not worried about that. My dad shrugs, and I walk out from behind the desk a moment later to refill the coffee pot, where Karen has moved to get some. That's right, that woman does not leave. Karen starts yelling at me now. It's endless screaming and yelling, I swear. She says to me, "What the heck are you doing? You're fired. Go home." I then smirk as I tell her two things. One, I'm the owner's daughter, gesturing to my dad. And two, the coffee here is for paying guests. And since you clearly stated you're not paying, you can't have any. The coffee was out anyways, so she couldn't get any even if she tried. Karen, now understanding why I called her mom the previous night, just storms off. I don't see her again for the rest of the weekend. And that, my friends, brings us to another end of r/entitled people. Guys, I hope you enjoyed today's stories. If you did, hit that thumbs up. And if you're not subscribed, consider subscribing so you don't miss these crazy stories. And if you missed the last episode on the channel, it's in r/malicious compliance, where bad bosses are getting taught lessons left and right. It's such a wild episode, so go check it out if you haven't. And myself and Stevie Boy will see you guys in the next one. We love you.